So Cathy, I know we're here today to talk about a incident that involved the Osage and Pawnee County District Attorney a number of years ago. So you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself, just kind of jump right into that?
Sure. So at a town hall forum / debate that was held on May 30th, organized by Shauna M. Myers, the featured speaker was DA Mike Fisher, and he referenced a 2018 criminal case which involved me, Cathy Miller, a 26-year resident of Osage County. And I've stayed silent for 6 years, waiting for justice to be served. Because during this time that I've been waiting, the sheriff has taken that case. It was sent to the AG, who sent it to another DA, and it was basically shoved under the rug. And then he has also included it with some other cases that have been bounced from judge to judge, judges recusing themselves and taking time, stalling.
We've seen some of those letters, yeah.
So during that town hall forum, some of the things that Mike Fisher said were either inaccurate or key details were omitted. And so that's what's prompted me to step forward and tell the story. In the primary election of 2018, I supported incumbent Rex Duncan for DA over his opponent, which was Mike Fisher.
The incumbent.
The incumbent was Rex Fisher. I had worked with him for several years on his, once he was in office, actually his first campaign, or one of his campaigns, and had worked with him closely because he was active in the Republican Party.
So to be clear, the incumbent is
Rex Duncan.
Rex Duncan. And
the challenger was Mike Fisher.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so I did what I do every campaign season, knock doors, organize meet and greets, put signs up, the usual things that people do. So in the spring of 2018, my buddy of 20 years lived in a subdivision, and he had just moved into an assisted living place. He was very helpful to me when I would campaign, driving me around in his side-by-side and pointing out what doors to be sure to knock. So once he moved in to the assisted living, then he gave me full permission to put whatever political signs I wanted in his yard, because he had a very strategic yard within the subdivision. So I did so a couple days ahead of the election. I put some Rex Duncan signs in his yard. And I ran out of time to...
Was there any other signs in the yard?
At that point, no. They would have been mine, the ones that I put up. So I ran out of time in the evening and decided that I would come back and finish up the 3 houses that I was missing the next day. And then I would go down to a separate area of the subdivision and knock doors there. So I came back the next day, and lo and behold, Rex Duncan signs were down, and Mike Fisher signs were up.
Down and gone, away?
Like, missing.
Like gone.
Missing. Yeah. And so I took down Mr. Fisher's signs, and I put up the Rex Duncan signs, and put the Mike Fisher signs in the back of my car in full view, because I know where he lives. And I know where he lives because I had knocked his doors 2 years earlier. And even though he was a Republican, he told me he was voting for 2 Democrats and against the 2 Republicans that I was campaigning for.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So it stuck in my mind.
Right.
And so I replaced the signs, and then I drove around to the other block away, and I began knocking the last 3 doors. So I got to the last door, knocked the door, had a nice conversation with the resident, and then turned to walk back towards my car. And as I looked at my car, I saw that there was this small framed man, and he was waving his arm, peeking in the windows, and there was a woman taking pictures. And he was telling me I was under citizen's arrest. And so as I approached, he asked for my name, but when I saw...
Did you know who he was?
Yeah, so I knew at that point. I didn't know in the beginning, but I knew when I approached who he was. And he kind of had a crazed look in his eyes, and so I didn't want to give him...
serious.
He sounded always very serious.
Yeah.
I mean, he was very agitated and serious, and like I say, hopping around and waving his arms, telling me I was under citizen's arrest. And I was, of course, very startled. I didn't know what to really say. And after he asked my name, I said no, I wasn't going to give him my name. And then I moved toward my car, and he said he was making a citizen's arrest, and I said, no, you are not. And then he told the woman who'd been taking photos of my license plate to make a phone call.
Has he indicated any reason why he's making a citizen's arrest at this point? Or?
That I'd stolen the signs.
Oh.
And he had seen them in the back of my car.
And
yes.
he gave you no chance to explain that none of that?
No.
Okay.
I asked him who the homeowner was, and he didn't know. And I said, well, I know the homeowner, and I have permission. But he still was pursuing the citizen's arrest. So at that point, I called the DA at the time and told him what was happening, and he told me to leave the area. So I was juggling a clipboard and my notes, you know, kind of my little campaign speech, my phone, my keys, and I thought, well, maybe I should video this. So I hit the phone thinking that I was going to record a video.
Yeah.
And as I got closer to the car, he stood in front of the driver's side door telling me that I wasn't going anywhere. And again, he said that I was under citizen's arrest. And I said that I'm leaving, and I took my key fob and unlocked the door. And then he moved in front of the handle so that I couldn't reach the handle. And, which by the way, I later found out that preventing someone from getting into their car, is considered kidnapping. But I realized, okay, he's not letting me in, I'll just run around and get in the passenger door. So I did that, I ran around, got in the passenger door, pulled the door shut, forgot to lock it, crawled over the console, and then immediately locked the door, the driver's side door. And he was still standing there. And so I started the car, and I looked up and realized I was in a cul-de-sac. Oh. And my heart sunk, and I went, oh no, because now I've got to go turn around. So I did that, I turned around, and as I came back, he and the woman were in the middle of the road, walking, and there was no way that I could get past. Well, fortunately, the house where they were in front of is a friend of mine, and so I knew that she would not mind if I drove onto her yard and across and into her driveway, and then that way I could get away. So I did that, and I got to the stop sign, not very far away, and I stopped to try to kind of collect my thoughts, take a deep breath, thinking that, you know, his car wasn't close by. Well, all of a sudden, a little red car with an I Like Mike sign on the side came flying up, and the driver got out, and Mr. Fisher went running over and hopped in the driver's side car, so I pulled up, and then he pulled right behind me. And then he followed me. I mean, I thought I was going to get hit all the way. I mean, it was several miles, and I was coming up to my house, and I didn't want him to know where I lived. So I kept going another couple miles, and there was a sheriff pickup with lights on, parked perpendicular to the road.
So I'm guessing he was on the phone to dispatch or 911 and had gotten units there maybe to head you off or something.
Yeah, that's what I think probably he told his wife to do, to call.
But going all the way back real quick to when you took the signs, your intent was to remove them because they didn't belong there.
They didn't belong there.
And you knew that because you were in charge of what signs went in that property or stayed there. So when you took them and put them in the trunk of your car, clearly you're not taking them to toss them in the trash.
No, I could have just left him the trash there. I know where he lived, so, and I was going down there next. So I was going to drive down and then take him out and put him on his lawn.
So you never had a chance to
I know, I never had a chance because this whole thing
Right.
happened. And I didn't even have a chance to really explain that.
You kind of jumped the gun, I guess, a little bit.
Yes. So I got, I was driving past my house and then saw two sheriff vehicles, not just one, but two, about a quarter mile apart. And so as I saw them, so did he. So Mr. Fisher backed off, and then I continued, and one, of course, came out and pulled me over. So I was there for about an hour being investigated,
Roadside, like just right there.
Roadside,
on the
yeah,
side of the
and there's
road,
not
kinda-
even a shoulder. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And traffic was coming by. And what had happened was, when I thought I was videoing, I actually called my husband.
Oh.
So he heard the whole interchange.
Oh, yeah.
So he knew where I was. So then he had passed me and had to go turn around, so he then came back.
Mhm.
And so he was parked there too. So there was 3 cars, 2 sheriff vehicles on the side of the road.
For an hour.
For an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
And what was the ultimate outcome of the little powwow there?
Well, I gave my side and I called my buddy and he answered, and so I said, Jim, can you talk to the sheriff deputy here? And so he did.
Mhm.
And then I think before, they were going back and forth between the 2 cars, and then towards the end, asked if I would go to Pawhuska and make a report, be investigated, whatever.
Do an interview.
Do an interview.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so I did that the next day.
Okay.
And then, so after that hour, I was I was drained after what now was like an hour and a half, probably, maybe close to 2-hour time frame.
The whole day's been sidetracked.
Yeah, and I just went home and I forgot about him knowing where I lived and pulled into the subdivision where I live, and I was completely drained, and I was mad because I like campaigning. I feel like it's a civic duty,
Mhm.
and I had no interest in going back out and campaigning. And I had committed to 5.5 hours that day of
Mhm.
campaigning. So I didn't get back out, and I didn't even, actually, it was a couple of months before I could even drive into the subdivision to visit my friend
I
over there.
believe it, yeah.
So then I did go up the next day to the sheriff's office and explained, what had happened. I explained that my buddy still owned the house, and actually Mr. Fisher in the forum had said that they closed that same day, and it did not. It actually didn't close until July 20th.
Oh, yeah.
So it had not closed yet, so it was still completely in the ownership of
So
my.
that's a number of days later than what he says.
It was like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks, maybe 3.5. 3.5, I think. So the report was filed, and it's case 2018-0733. And then I was not arrested or anything. And then the sheriff proceeded, along with the DA, to try to bring justice to the situation.
Mhm.
It was, I'm not easily scared. And it was something that made such an imprint on me that I still, every time I go out campaigning, I think about it. It's kind of dwindled a little bit, but this year, 6 years later, with this forum debate that happened, with all of the social posts that
Probably bringing up those
DA
emotions again, and yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It definitely is. And it's just terrifying me to think of a sheriff being beholden in any way to a DA who has endorsed and promoted that candidate.
Mhm.
And then it's frightening to think about the kind of abuse of power that would be possible if there was any kind of alliance between a sheriff and a DA, because there's really no oversight. And then you combine that with the out-of-county prosecutors that their right is to decline to pursue a case. And then you have judges that are stalling, recusing themselves, and it becomes less and less likely that there'll be justice.
This case here seems to be particularly vexing to Mr. Fisher, because it seemed to be, it was the first thing that he brought up that night at the town hall forum.
It was.
I think, obviously his agenda is to try to make it all go away, I guess.
I think you're right. And not that I want to be out, telling this,
Mm.
but I just feel like the truth needs to be heard, because what he said really made me look bad, and didn't tell what he did and how the reaction, that the impact it had on me.
And so just to cover some of the things that he did say that night, I think he was trying to imply that that he had control over what signs could go in that yard, and that you didn't have authority to remove the signs, and somehow he knew that you were stealing these signs, even though you hadn't been given a chance to steal the signs per se.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, and he also mentioned that there were a lot of people stealing signs in the Republican Party of Osage County.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, this was the only sign incident that year.
And was that your first adverse interaction with him?
Yes.
But you had spoken with him before?
I had spoken with him 2 years earlier when I was campaigning that year, and had it was a general election, and so I was just knocking doors, asking people to vote, and talking about the candidates, and that's when he told me that even though he was a registered Republican, he was voting for the two Democrats that were running.
Yeah,
the two
yeah.
that I was campaigning.
That's troubling. And I saw a text exchange. Somebody showed me a screenshot of a text from Mike Fisher to somebody that was elected that was actually helping a candidate. Like maybe it was, I can't remember who it was. It may have been Randall Jones or what have you. And in it, Mike Fisher was saying, hey, you know, you're an elected official. It's really not a good look. You out there campaigning in this political environment. I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
I did see that, and I think he actually had, there was a text in there, or a post, where he had told an elected official that they could not be.
That might be what I'm referencing right
putting up
there. Yeah,
signs.
and so I find that very interesting, the hypocrisy of that, and to see where he's at now, today, with, he's got his three candidates that he knows he has to get in so that he can continue his current business practice, and they'll support it.
That's exactly what I feel is going on. And I did drive, he's told people that he couldn't put signs in his yard, but there are signs there.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, but thank you for letting me tell my story.
It's a crazy story. I mean, I can't imagine, being somebody in your shoes and having that encounter like that. I think my heart would be beating out of my chest as well. So, just thank you for sharing it.